Rolling action.
So, I'm Ohm Desai. I'm a junior student at Marietta High School. Where are you?
I'm your assistant, just kidding. My name is Rivera. I'm the superintendent here at Marietta City Schools.
So, just a little bit of context for the viewers.
Yeah.
So, Marietta High School and Marietta in general is moving towards a place where students don't have their phones in classrooms. And I'm here to talk to our superintendent because some students just want to know more about it. First question, how are students supposed to receive information about extracurricular activities without having their phones on them?
Sure. So let me just set some context because I want to make sure that everyone understands the starting place for our conversation. So currently right now in Marietta, which was effective as of August this past year, we limit student access to cell phones and smartwatches at grades 6, 7, and 8. And obviously the conversation we're having here is around high school and what do we do. I actually don't know yet if this is something we will do next year. I can talk more about that if you would like in a little bit. But your question really was around how would students get access to changes in athletic schedules, employers who might need to contact a student, and I have two thoughts on that. My first thought is an empathetic response, which is to say we will set up ways for messages to get to students when they're necessary. And the reason I know that is we're doing the exact same thing at middle school. When we launched this at middle school, the concern was, well, my kid's gonna ride the car and not ride the bus, or my kid, there was a change to the football schedule. We have built all those processes in. So just like in elementary school, if a parent needs to change the transportation plan at the end of the day, they call the middle school or they email the middle school, someone receives that message. They contact the student in class and say, hey, you're riding the bus, you're not riding the car. And then we contact the parent back and confirm that the message was delivered. So all those things we've done in middle school, and it's actually really easy to replicate. We just have to scale it up to high school. So that's my empathetic response. I will also say this, it's gonna be okay. Most of the adults walking this building didn't have anybody able to check in with them during the school day either. We turned out just fine. So I think to the students, I think we have to stop for a moment and be reflective and say, one, I need you to be responsible. And yet, if things change, we'll get you the information that you need from your parent, from your coach. For example, let's say it's raining today and all of a sudden lacrosse practice is canceled. Well, we can easily put that on every TV in the building, announce it over the intercom, and don't go to the practice field because there's no lacrosse today. So those are very simple things that we can put in place. We did it at the middle school, it's been flawless. And yet, I also think it might be okay to be just a little less connected.
Yeah, I see that a lot. I know one thing that students are extremely concerned about, just as a general thing, is they think that their freedoms is example, an upperclassman with an early release block or a junior or senior with a work-based learning block. They're thinking that it's sort of removing their freedoms as a high schooler. How would you say that the phone policy affects that? I know, to just add on a little bit, I got an example from a student in class. They were like, oh, I don't know if my work is on today because of the rain. I think it still leads on to what you said about my last question. The school will be able to handle that information going to the student. Is that correct?
Yeah, so let's take two scenarios. And you were asking about employers, and you were talking about kind of freedoms and rights.
Yeah, not like that, but the employing part deals with the same thing about the extracurriculars. Yeah. But seniors feel as if they should have the freedom to.
They're entitled to have their phone.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me separate the two for a minute. I think let's take two employer scenarios. One is it's raining outside, your employer does not want you to come to work. If your employer has a email and a cell phone for the high school, and we say, hey, work through work-based learning, which currently exists, right? I'm going to contact an office and I'm going to tell this student that they should not come to work this afternoon. We will take that message, we will relay it to the student, and we will call the employer back and tell them we sent the message. Easy. Flip that scenario. Let's say there's a student who says, you know what, I can't go to work this afternoon, it's noon, and I really should call my employer because I don't want to wait till 2:45. Well, in that case, they can come to an office, and right now we're thinking about each grade level office and you can say, hey, I need to call my employer. And in front of a caring adult, we'll unlock the pouch, let you call your employer. And if you're going to call your mom and tell her how much you love her, we're not going to do that again next time. But if you want to call your employer for a legitimate reason, we will create opportunities in spaces that are simple and supervised, so that way students can have reasonable communication. No problem. I think the idea about rights and kind of entitlement is a very different conversation than how can my employer reach me or how can I reach my employer. So here's what I would say. One of my greatest disappointments one of my greatest honors every year is shaking the hand of 600 kids who will walk across the stage. One of my greatest disappointments is that 80% of them can't shake my hand, can't look me in the eye. We've lost this dynamic around socialization. I'm not taking your phone 24/7. We're simply proposing that while you're in the building, to help you learn better, to stay focused, to not be distracted, to help you build relationships with your teacher, to help you interact with people you may not know in class or in the cafeteria, just be present. I just want you to be present. I'm not taking away your right to have a phone at night. I'm not taking away your right to get on TikTok. You can do anything you want. What we're saying is we believe, and the research supports, that students learn better, teachers teach better, and there is more socialization, more eye contact and handshakes when students aren't sucked into an algorithm that the smartest people in the world have developed to suck you and me in for just a few more minutes. Because the reality is everybody's walking around here staring at their phone and nobody's walking around here talking to each other.
Yeah.
Does that apply to everybody? I shouldn't, no. But let's acknowledge that the algorithms are real. The struggle is real. And what we want is for students to be present, be focused, be learning, build relationships. And I think you can have a right to do whatever you want with your phone, but in the same way that we have the discretion to talk about dress code and I have the discretion to say when you should come to school and when you can leave, we also have the discretion to decide what's a classroom environment best supports you without infringing on your rights.
And I think I'd agree on that point. I think having your phone in class, I know it affects me personally in the ways where I'll have these 20, 30, maybe even 5 minutes that I could possibly get some other work done or have a conversation with my teacher about something that I needed to do. And my phone would distract me from doing that or lead me just to scroll instead of getting that done. Yeah. Something I noticed today, so I think you already answered this a little bit also. You're not getting to my questions before I'm asking them, which is great. I think it shows how much you care about this and know about it. How do you think phones will affect problems that aren't directly related, such as like being off task or sleeping in class?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that, and again, I want to say that the middle school brain and the middle school child is different than the high school brain and the high school child, right?
Yeah.
Some things I didn't expect. So when we rolled this out in grades 6 through 8, we have students that are athletes. We have students who ride the buses. When we went and interviewed coaches 4 months into this, they would say, practices are so much different. There's no drama after school practices. The bus drivers would say the kids are getting on the bus and they're so much more chill because there's no drama. They're not all jacked up all day from what they're watching on social media and messaging back and forth. So I know our primary focus, if we choose to do this, is around protecting the classroom environment. And yet, there also are all these other dynamics that could potentially occur that are good. The idea that student athletes are more focused in practice. If we see in high school what we're seeing in middle school, I'll take that. The idea that there's less drama on school buses. The idea there's more interaction in the cafeteria. The idea that, listen, the hallways at Marietta High School during class changes are somewhat quiet compared to what I'm used to as a high school principal from 9 years ago. And that's because everybody's on their phone. So I think there are some things that go far beyond the classroom that could be positive benefits. And that's what's really interesting to me, and I want to respect that everybody is entitled to their opinion. Everybody is connected, or maybe even in different ways addicted to their phones in different ways. Not everybody's the exact same. And I think what we have to acknowledge is that there can be a lot of good that comes from learning and socialization when the algorithm isn't sucking you in. And that's where I'm most intrigued.
I agree with that. One thing that a lot of my peers and people who are students my age have said, I don't know if this is 100% true, but they've said that with this phone thing, I know what they called it back in MCAA, was BYOD, or bring your own device. Is that also going to start getting rolled back? And alleviating some how many personal like technology items you can bring, such as like a MacBook or a personal laptop?
Yeah. So let's acknowledge the obvious, and we're doing this at middle school right now, and we've been studying other high schools around the country. If we secure your phone, you secure your phone. I don't physically take your phone. If your phone is secured and it's in your bag, well, I don't want to have you pull out your, personal laptop and be able to message and circumvent the exact same way. So what's happened is that at the middle school, we do not allow people to bring their personal devices. Every student gets a Chromebook. And what we ask you to do at school can be done on a Chromebook. Listen, my wife loves a Mac. Like, I get it. There are certain people who have certain preferences. And yet, we have to acknowledge that our responsibility is to make sure you have a device that can do the work that you need to do. It may not be the one you want. So those will be some things that we have to address. Obviously, there's all kinds of questions, which are generally simple. How do we make sure you have access to the websites that you need? Because right now, if you can't get them on a Chromebook, you bypass it with your phone or with your personal device. So we'll have to make sure that we have sites accessible that students need for school without opening everything up. But I think those are all considerations.
I think that's one thing I've noticed when I'm on my personal device in school. So if I'm on the school internet, it's exactly how a Chromebook would function. Basically, everything that I could see on my laptop is what anyone would see on the Chromebook. But then if I switch to my hotspot, which anyways would go away with the phone pouch, I could look at so much more. I can cruise the internet. I can watch my Netflix in class if I wanted to. I can use sources that may not be particularly accepted by teachers, such as like an AI. That's just my conclusion on that part.
And I think you're spot on. It's like, listen, what we have in our hands with a cell phone is it's a computer. Mm-hmm. And that resource in your hand gives you the opportunity to be incredibly distracted if you're not otherwise able to control it. And I think the reality is that we have to apply a common sense approach to personal devices as well, because we can just be trading one distraction for another. So I think we as a district, us as a school, need to do a better job of making sure that students have access to what they want. Teachers need to do a better job of making sure that if they want you to access a resource, you can get to it. So I've seen with my own kid where the teacher pulls up a YouTube link, my kid can't get to it on a Chromebook. And we've got to make sure that while that might have been fine a while ago, as all this changes, and why do we not send kids to YouTube? Because there's a lot of stuff on there I want people to see. I think so. We have to have an approach that honors what students need to be able to accomplish, but also has some guardrails so we don't go in the ditch.
Okay. Some of my peers' parents have mentioned that they believe it should be their decision whether the kids should be allowed to use their phones. Yeah. Do you believe this argument has any merit or any strong holding to it?
Yeah. So, families who believe that it's their decision, I respect that, and I think that comes from different places. For some families, they are concerned about being able to reach their child. They become accustomed to being able to contact their kid, and they want to be able to do that when they want to do it. For other families, it's about safety. I want to be able to reach my kid in the event of an emergency. And there are a host of other reasons why families may feel like it's their decision. I will say this. We create rules inside of school to do our very best to help you to reach your fullest potential. If I let every parent opinion dictate what they wanted school to be, there would be some families that want a 2-day, they want school 2 days a week, they want Fridays off, and they want half days. You got other families who want you there 6 days a week. It would be impossible for me to cater to every opinion in the community. Here's what I've said very unapologetically. I am not trying to win a popularity contest with families, and I'm not trying to win a popularity contest with kids. I will share what my beliefs are about what I think is healthy for students and good for learning, and yet what I care the most about in this whole conversation is what do the teachers want? They are the ones who are with students all day. Families trust teachers for 90 minutes at a time, or sometimes 8 hours at a time with their children, their most prized possession. If teachers feel as if their ability to teach or their ability to build relationships is impacted, that's what I'm listening to. As opposed to trying to make everybody in the community happy, it's impossible. I respect why families might agree or disagree with this vision, and yet I will say the people I trust the most, and I believe families, the people they trust the most are teachers. In this case, I'm going to put that decision in the hands of the teachers to get a sense of whether they think they can do their job better to support you if in fact we go this direction.
One thing about the teachers, like you mentioned, I noticed that the teachers that I have that do the best in teaching also also have a no phone policy. So I'll give a little thing here. My French teacher, amazing teacher, BL put her phones away, and I feel like that's one of the classes where I'm most attentive in, like mentally in scape of the class.
Yeah.
Maybe because there's some factors to it. Maybe it's a complete new subject. I have no background in it, but still, I feel like I'm paying attention way more and trying to learn it way more.
Yeah.
So do you think the teachers' mindsets will change also in how they're teaching because of the phone policies?
That's my hope. I mean, I think that anecdotally what I've gotten from teachers is they're exhausted.
Yeah.
Some people have figured out how to manage it, but they take the risk on because they're taking the phones. Other teachers said, listen, I asked them to put it away, but if I stopped class every time a phone was out, I spend more time telling them to put their phone away than teaching. There's a lot of teachers who have different ways to approach it. We've tried to train them, we've tried to support them, we've put expectations in place. When all this is said and done, what we're trying to do is keep it easy on the teachers. I don't want teachers fighting phones. I want them teaching and learning and loving. And if we took away the time and energy and the headache that came from phones with teachers, how much more could they accomplish? So I do think, to your point, I mean, there's a very reflective question for teachers, and that is, hey, listen, if there used to be 10 or 15 or 20 minutes of downtime, and kids used to get on their phones, so what are you going to do now to make the best use of instruction time? Because they're not going to be on their phones anymore. So I think in the same way that we're asking students to have an open mind, we also have to have teachers have an open mind on how do we take advantage of what's in front of us now. Maximize class time. Don't waste time. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to think about how teaching and learning could look different. Yeah.
That's great. I think this will be my final question,
Sure.
just to wrap it up. I'll give a brief example. I have a pal with type 1 diabetes, and they use their phone as a way to check their blood sugar and glucose levels. Will there be exemptions to students that need to have their phones for medical, religious, or bona fide reasons?
Yeah. So let me. Will there be medical exemptions? Yes. I have yet to see a religious exemption. To just give credibility to what I'm saying, at the middle school we have students who have various medical conditions. You gave an example of a diabetic. That is one of them. In every one of those situations, when we have a documented medical need, we have provided an exception and never once had a problem. Never once. So our student who has it in a pouch, a little fanny pouch, it's not an issue. It's not locked. There are other kids who have a pouch that looks like it's locked, but it doesn't. So at the end of the day, we're going to meet every kid where they are based on their medical needs. And we have not had a single issue. It's January. We started this in August. And we've tried to honor what each child needs to be safe. I think in return, those families and those kids have not abused it. So I have no issue whatsoever in granting medical exemptions based on a documented need. The answer is yes, absolutely.
I think that's a good way to wrap this up. I think it was a good talk. I think students will be very interested to see what you had to say and just have a general knowledge and grasp on this new thing that might be coming next year.
All right. Nice to meet you, Bill. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Enjoy it.
Awesome. Where's the button?
Anything else you want to ask me? Either one of you?
Good.